Dzień dobry, ciao, konnichiwa, hola, bonjour, good morning, good morning, good morning. It's Ken at 10. How are you today? It's Friday. As many of you will know, it's my favorite day of the week. So smile, it's Friday. How are you doing? If you haven't been here before, thanks for coming. If you're joining us yet again, well, thank you for joining us yet again. This is Ken at 10. We're James Alexander Estate Agents, and every weekday at 10 o'clock, we discuss all things relating to the UK housing market, how we can dissect what's going on in the UK housing market, what's going on right now, and how it might affect you. So I hope you're doing well today. We're in Norbury, Southwest 16. Norbury is situated between Streatham and Croydon. Streatham to the north and Croydon to the south. We're a Zone 3 commuter area. So a real mix of people in the local area, real mixed community. And so very interesting place to be, and gives a good cross-section of what's going on in the UK population. Let's look at the headlines today. First of all, one from Zoopla Analysis, which is in the Daily Mail, City AM, and the London Evening Standard, the Mirror and the Guardian, as usual. It's like there's one journalist, isn't it? And they all pick up on them now. Zoopla Analysis shows the average price of a home in Britain has risen by £49,257 in the last 5 years, with the total value of the country's housing stock jumping 20% to 9.2 trillion. Hard figure to get your head around, isn't it? Trillion, 9.2 trillion. The data shows that more than a third of the 1.6 trillion increase has come in the past year. The report found that more than 2/3 of homes in 53 of the country's 367 local authority areas have risen by more than 49,000. Topping the list, drumroll, Monmouthshire, 88.2% homes have risen by more than the average. Hastings, 83.1%. Of course, we've talked about the exodus out to seaside resorts and the like over the last couple of years during the pandemic. And Trafford, up there in Manchester, at 82.8%. The concentration of areas where a large proportion of homes have risen by more than the average are clustered in the South and Midlands, and there's a noticeable number of coastal locations. Well, you heard it here a long time ago now, where we talked about the fact that coastal locations have become the fashion, so to speak. But actually, London's getting a resurgence, and we'll come on to that in a moment. A first-time buyer guide special is in the Times today, and with concerns about stagflation, interest rate rises, and spiralling living costs, the Times presents a first-time buyer guide special. The markets are predicting the interest rate rise to 0.75% to the end of next year. Well, to put that into perspective, we've said for a while now interest rate rises are on the cards. We are at 0.25% at the moment, so that's a 0.5% rise. Realistically, that's not going to make a huge impact on your mortgage repayments. Although what you will find is that as mortgage rates tend to follow the Bank of England base rates, you will find those base rates the fixed rates rather, start to creep up. So not financial advice, but could be a good time if you're staying put to look at your rates and maybe lock down a good one if you can, if you're not already in a fixed rate. We've said that for some time now. What it says is that the market's predicting a rise by the end of the year, which along with rising energy costs, higher council tax and a rumoured lowering of student loan repayment threshold could have a big impact on first-time buyers. Deposits will be harder to save and affordability will become even more stretched. Average UK house prices have increased by more than 40,000 in the past 5 years, according to Zoopla, while the average full-time salary has risen by 4,956. Wayhome, a gradual home ownership provider, calculated this meant it will now take the average first-time buyer 5 more years, 15.7 years, rather than 10.4 years to raise that deposit. And if you think about it, it's interesting, those numbers, because the salary's risen by 5,000, and the average salary multiple is 4 to 5 times, then you could say that there's a 20,000 jump in affordability, but over that same period, house prices have jumped by double that at 40,000. And it goes to show that the best time to get on in the property ladder most of the time is the earliest point that you can afford to do so, because those rates, the actual price rises tend to outstrip any savings that you could make. Bank of England says that demand for mortgages has declined in Q3, and that's because the credit conditions survey shows that demand for mortgages to buy a house fell and is likely to fall again in the Q4. But remortgaging is more likely to offset that. Well, that's what we suspected would happen. We've seen a much lower volume of transaction post the stamp duty deadline. Of course, a lot of people brought forward the decision to buy a house to pre-June in order to take the maximum advantage of the stamp duty break. Some used the stamp duty break that ended in September. If they were buying at sub 250, that would save them £2,500. But the 15,000 break was the bigger one, ending back in June. And of course, many people fought to try and get it through in time. But the funny thing was, the confidence was there anyway. I'm not sure we actually needed the stamp duty break. I've said for a while now, if you look at the worldwide trend, it's not just the UK, but the world has seen house prices jump post-pandemic or during the pandemic, indeed, as people reassess their life needs and the Zoom commuter changes how people are working and living. Article on John Lewis from the Daily Mail. We've said for a while now, John Lewis and Lloyds Bank are looking to become the biggest landlords in the UK. So it's interesting to see what they're doing. And John Lewis in the Daily Mail has confirmed that the group's entire estate, including all 365 department stores and Waitrose supermarkets, are being considered for its private property development plans. It set a target of 10,000 new build-to-rent homes, which will be furnished to John Lewis products over the next 10 years. Classier, nice John Lewis home to rent. I'm sure many people would like that. The plans have raised speculation whether the company will convert existing retail space to build on top of supermarkets or put buildings up alongside the existing store space. It's interesting when you see retailers jumping ship and coming over more to the residential market. Should landlords be worried? No, they should be vindicated, actually. You know, if people like John Lewis and Lloyds are coming into the market, they're coming into it for a reason, and that is they see it as a viable future business for profit. Let's make no bones about this. They're not charitable organizations. They are businesses. So they will be looking to achieve top dollar rental because that's what they're there to do, to return money to their shareholders. In order to do that, they will have to get a good product out there. That'll be good for tenants, but it will be at the top end. And it will by no means take up the slack of the rental market the way it is at the moment. Even with 10,000 homes, there's a drop in the ocean to the hundreds of thousands of new homes that are needed every year in order to keep pace with demand. And the government's nowhere near meeting those targets. And that's why these businesses are stepping in. They see it as an opportunity, and it's a good one. But I think as a landlord, you shouldn't be worried about the threat that represents. You should be glad that your business is vindicated by the fact that large providers are coming in and seeing that space as a potential profit center as well as you. 5K gas boiler upgrade has been announced, or is to be announced, and this is in the Telegraph today. Boris Johnson saying next week that he'll announce that new gas boilers will be banned from 2035, and families will be offered £5,000 grants to buy heat pumps for their homes. This is the centerpiece of the Prime Minister's strategy for heat and buildings. He's also published his net zero strategy, which has set up a roadmap to achieving net zero by 2050. I'm not convinced by that, but it's good to see him working towards it, really. They're talking about a green investment in jobs as well as a shift to cleaner forms of transport, such as electric vehicles. Yeah, interesting that. At the moment, the ground source heat pumps and the air source heat pumps are there. They're quite expensive. The air source heat pumps particularly don't work well in particularly well in sub-zero temperatures. We do want to get someone on to talk more about that actually on the show, possibly the podcast, just to talk about what improvements you can make, because it's on everybody's mind with these huge energy bills coming through, what you can do to make your home more energy efficient and how you can spend less money on the essentials and be greener and save carbon at the same time. It's something that everybody's thinking about, rightly so. And we intend to get an expert on to talk to us about that. Article in BBC News, no DSS. As many of you will know, we did a video on this, which has been very popular. More than a year after a judge ruled blanket bans on renting properties to people receiving benefits were unlawful in a landmark case, many people say they are still facing discrimination by landlords. In July 2020, a single mother of two fought a successful battle after a letting agent refused to rent to her. But less than 6 months later, an investigation by BBC found many property site listings excluded renters on benefits. The chief executive of Shelter said, unfortunately, we're aware this is still going on. And she said there's a need for fundamental reform of the private renting system. The government have promised they're going to bring forward a renters reform bill, but unfortunately it's been delayed. Yeah, a renters reform bill is really not going to solve that problem. The thing that's going to solve the problem is actually making the benefit system more viable so that landlords can trust it and tenants can trust it. So they know that the money they're getting is sufficient to cover their rent. And that's the big problem, is that in most cases, in most London boroughs anyway, the provision available from council doesn't come anywhere near the open market values. So there's always a shortfall. And then the question comes up, how would the tenant afford this? How would they afford the difference between what the local authority will grant them and what the current rental price is? On top of that, rental payments going directly to tenants, many landlords are losing money that way. It's only after 8 weeks of arrears they can then apply to have it stopped going directly to the tenants. Had many examples of landlords frustrated by this situation where tenants have received the money, decided not to pass it on to them, and then they find themselves in financial dire straits. Apart from that, we've seen the PMs Holiday villa linked to offshore tax havens. Had to happen, didn't it? The Prime Minister's holiday in Spain has come under scrutiny after it emerged that the luxury £25,000 a week, £25,000 a week estate lent to Boris Johnson by Lord Zach Goldsmith is featured in the Pandora Papers, with documents showing that the estate is held by an opaque offshore structure based in multiple tax havens. Boris, really, this isn't a good look. The Guardians say that holidaying at a property that appears to be held for a chain of companies in secretive jurisdictions will probably raise questions. Probably. Of course, it will raise questions about its commitment to reforms designed to introduce transparency to the offshore property ownership in the UK. It certainly will, and it's certainly a very bad look, Boris. I mean, he can afford his own holiday anyway, can't he? To be doing that in a controversially held property in that way is a bit much, isn't it? It's a bit rubbing the nose in it. It does stick a bit in the throat, that one. Apart from that, it's Friday. Friday's a fantastic day for us, as many of you will know why. Lots happen on a Friday in agency. First of all, it's the day for exchanges. This is when people exchange contracts. The point before they buy, they hand over their deposits, a legal commitment is made, and then 2 weeks later they move in. It's also a day for completions. People tend to complete on a Friday because if you complete on a Friday, this is where the keys are handed over and the final monies are transferred. And people tend to complete on a Friday because it gives them the weekend then to comfortably move in, and then they've got the whole weekend before they go back to work, perhaps, and it gives them time to get organised, get settled, and get used to their new home. And that's a beautiful time. People coming in for their keys, we love that time. It's a real time for celebration. And also Fridays, it's the start of the weekend for me. The idea that people are out there, they're looking around. Sorry, fire engine going by. They're out there, they're looking around, and they're thinking about their weekend ahead. They're going to enjoy their weekend. They're maybe going to look at a few properties to buy. We find it's the most popular day of the week for people going out there and looking for a home to buy. It's the chance where we get to physically meet people on a Saturday, because most of our job involves ringing people, but on a Saturday it's lovely to actually meet these people, go out, start chatting with them about their needs, wants, desires, what they'd like, and what their motivations for moving are. One of the things a lot of agents miss, in my view, is their why. What is your why? Why are you moving? What is it that the motivation for your move? So if we can understand why you're moving, it gives us a much better chance to then help you towards that goal. If it's for that large garden, then we can not be that mudslinger agent like the others, offering you that 25 feet garden, which you're never going to buy because they don't understand the reason why you're moving in the first place. So we like to have open discussions with buyers about why they're moving, what they've seen, what the best ones they've seen so far are, how they compare, how the one they're looking at through us compares with the other ones they've seen, so we can advise our vendors to where they sit competitively in the marketplace, because we're always looking to make sure that our vendors are offering competitive pricing on the one hand, but obviously we want to achieve the best price for them. But part of that involves a strategy where quite often we're doing guide prices rather than asking prices and letting the market decide on the actual price. So we might quite often now ask offers over 500,000 and ultimately end up with a price at 550 or 600, depending on what the market will stand. But driving those viewings in the first place by the lower guide figure can make a massive difference to the final price achieved. And certainly we've had some massive success with that, with properties achieving 10 and 20% over the guide prices that we're asking. And certainly we're finding that that's the way to get people in the door, to get that excitement. Nobody wants that property that's been around forever. Everybody wants the hot one that's just come on the market. And for yours to be that, you need to create exclusivity around it, excitement and enthusiasm. And that's what we're all about. So if you're thinking of selling, come and talk to us, even if it's not this year, it's next year. We love talking ahead of time. We love advising you on what you should or shouldn't do in terms of improvements and tweaks to make sure you have the very best chance of selling. So that's it for today. Hope you have a fantastic day. Looking forward to the weekend. Hope you are too. Look after your family and friends, and we'll see you on Monday for another edition. Until then, stay safe and well. Ciao.